Hi there, and welcome back to another episode of All Around Azure. My name is Jason Hand, and I'll be your host today. Really excited for today's episode. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while. We're going to be speaking with one of my good friends and fellow cloud advocates here at Microsoft. Without further ado, let me just introduce him and you can say hello. So, everybody meet Jay Gordon. And Jay, say hello to everyone.
How's it going, everybody?
Hey, Jay. Good to
It's nice
finally
to
get
have
you on
you.
the show, man.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. It's always good to be able to spend time with not only people I know, but people who want to kind of show off the same things I want to do, which is all the different fundamentals of Azure.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, Jay and I have been working on similar stuff for a while, but kind of on, I would say, parallel paths. And so
Hmm.
it's good that our schedules align, our objectives align, and everything else, and we get to work on something again together because we got to do the Ignite tour for a long time, and now with all the changes, that's not really much of a thing anymore. So,
Yeah, but you know what? It is good to be doing a lot of this stuff from home
yeah,
because one, you get an opportunity to still have impact.
right,
You get to talk to people in a way that's still really useful. You get to do cooler stuff because you don't have so many time limits.
right,
So if you want to actually take a walk through a particular technology, and people can actually go on that kind of walk with you, it's not that hard to do, thanks to the way we're kind of working. And we're basically really lucky to have this kind of opportunity. So I'm digging it, and I'm just glad you had me on today.
yeah. And I was going to say also, Jay's got his own Twitch channel and his own show. You want to share a little bit about that and let people
Sure.
on?
It's called Azure Fun Bites. It's a combination of, we do a pre-recorded little video every week with about 2 minutes. You can find out a bunch of information about a different fundamental around Azure, and then not only that, but every week I do a live show here on Twitch as well. You can go to Azure Fun Bites here on Twitch. You could follow me also on Twitter. You can go also on YouTube, and you can go to Jay Gordon. My channel has my show live weekly as well, and all the pre-records are there, so you can watch them on Twitch, you can watch them on YouTube. You can watch them everywhere. Yeah, I got a setup.
JTV, all Jay all the time.
Yeah.
You got him everywhere. And we'll be sure to have the links to all that as part of our show notes for this episode as well. And I'll also say for those of you joining us, if you've got any questions, we'll be keeping an eye on the chat pretty closely. So both Jay and I will be. And don't hesitate to ask any questions, and we'll pause and talk to Jay about those and discuss whatever it is you got on your mind. But otherwise, Jay, you want to tell us a little bit about what you're going to show and tell today?
Yeah, I think I wanted to kind of walk us through some stuff with Microsoft Azure, and a couple of different ways to actually deploy an application. Um, So the way to kind of do this that I've planned on is giving us a couple different opportunities to see ways to deploy applications with Azure. Jason, you want to just let me know, and I'll
Yeah, if you're
pop
ready to
up
switch
the.
over to your screen, okay.
Yeah, go ahead. And I want to give everybody an idea of like what we're going to be working on. I think it gives you a cool thing to get a baseline.
Yeah.
Um, I'm just trying to figure out how to see the chat. I don't know enough about where that stuff is, but I'll figure it out.
The
Whatever.
chat, the
Uh,
chat between you and I, the back channel on.
no.
Oh,
Oh, I was trying to get it on
I
Twitch,
see
but
the stream chat. If you
yeah,
just go
yeah.
to
Live channels.
twitch.tv/Microsoft Developer, you should be able to
Okay,
see it there.
got it. All right. I'll just leave this here. And if you want to let me know, Jason, if there's anyone while they're talking questions, just let me know. So here's what I wanted to do. I wanted to play around with a clock. And one of the reasons I like to play around with this clock is that this clock is one of the most basic applications that you can deploy on Azure. It's something I used for all kinds of demos, and it's basically this. It's a clock. It's JavaScript. It's React. It's extremely basic. It's stateless, which means it doesn't need a database. It doesn't need to keep files anywhere for it to actually continue to do what its service does. It simply just provides a clock constantly using JavaScript, CSS. You can see right here, it's developed with Node.js, React, Babel, Webpack, SCSS, and Bootstrap 4. Now, all these things, I got to be honest with you, Jason, it's completely inconsequential to what we're doing. This
Mm-hmm.
is this application is just here to make it easy for you to do things. Like I love using this application, and I've already cloned the repo here, and we'll give you just an idea of what we're going to be doing today. I've got a couple of things that I've put in this repository that I think really is going to help everyone. And one of the things, Jason,
Mm-hmm.
these are a bunch of links. I'd love everyone to take a look at. I'm going to put them in our back channel so you can share them with our friends and compadres who are along for the road today.
Perfect.
But these are some great ways for you to get some information. They're all right here if you just want to kind of screenshot what we're doing the video, or Jason will put them in the chat. So, like I said, this video, I don't want anybody to think that you have to know the ins and outs of React Clock. That's not that big a deal. What you want to realize here at this point is uh, what you can do to deploy React Clock, and that's what I wanted to talk to everybody about. So, what we're going to kind of get into throughout this is looking at a couple of different ways to actually deploy this application on Azure. Uh, and so, what it's all going to really start with is the idea of how do we actually look at this app and find out how we can get it live. Well, if you take a look at just some bits and pieces of it, we've got a Docker file. Um, we've got some Kubernetes manifests, and then I've also got the ye old virtual machine install script. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to actually build this ye old VM. So we're going to kind of think about building stuff uh, really in a simple way. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a resource. And what I'm going to do is create an Ubuntu server using 1804 version LTS, which is long-term support. That means that they're going to make sure they give you patches and releases for a while. Uh, so we're going to create a new resource group. And you know why, Jason?
I know why. You want my opinion? Or I think I know why.
Do you want my smart alecky answer?
Let me think. Yes, I do want your smart aleck answer.
Because everything in Azure is a resource. So you got to put it in a group. It's got to go somewhere. Can't leave resources all over the place. You're just going to make a mess. So we
Uh,
put them in groups. And so I like to think of them as like little boxes, containers
mm-hmm.
of like, when you make when you buy a dozen eggs, the great thing about the container that the dozen eggs comes in is that you could take stuff out, you could put stuff in, and you could actually take the egg and put it in another container if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're done with it, say you think all the eggs aren't really working out, you could take the whole thing and just toss it in the trash and move on. And that's kind of the way I look at what resource groups are. So we're gonna go ahead.
Okay.
I'm gonna buy a dozen. I'm gonna get an empty egg carton right now. So we're gonna call that egg carton. Why not? And then I'm
Sounds
going to
good.
just hit OK. And then what we're going to do is we're going to give our virtual machine a name. It's where we're going to build our application to get started with. So I'm just going to call it clock for Jason, because Jason, you deserve your own clock.
Well, thank you.
Uh,
Hey,
and
real
so
quick,
we're,
real quick. I,
yeah,
I don't. I don't want to forget this one. We got a question that came in. It's not specific about VMs necessarily, but somebody's got
sure.
the question of what they're curious about Azure and unsure where to jump in. What resource or project do you recommend would be good for someone coming in fresh? I think this
Coming
is
in.
really, yeah, it's really like where do you think is a great jumping in point for somebody who hasn't played with Azure? And I'll share a link too to give you like to do the free sign up and the Azure credits and all that. But where should they go
Sure.
once they have those free credits?
So I actually believe the first thing you should do is go to Microsoft Learn. Before you get a chance to do it, you go to the AZ 900 Azure Fundamentals training. And what happens is throughout that course, one, you get to the point where you sign up for $200. But if you'd like to sign up for $200 today, Jason's got the link for you. But you could check out the Azure AZ900 Fundamentals Learning Path in Learn. And within that process, you're going to eventually learn how to do things like deploy an application to an app service. You're going to some point learn how to build a virtual machine. So you just have to think about it in the context of you can take this walk through Azure, and the door to open you need to use sometimes is Microsoft Learn. So Jason will send us out some links, or I'll make sure that there's a link for you to check out.
Yeah, I'm grabbing the link right now, so I'll have that here shortly.
I cannot stress enough, if you have the access to use something like Microsoft Learn, you really should take it. It's a great way to get working. So we're going to build this clock, and we're going to build it in the East US region. And that's because Azure's kind of built into different regions. Regions are collections of data centers. Data centers are built into AZs, or where am my brain going? I'm sorry. Availability zones. Yes. So that's the hierarchy. And so the availability zones are a collection of individually powered data centers that have their own networks, their own everything. So they're completely independent of one another. What you don't need to do is worry about the power yourself. You don't need to worry about air conditioning. You're not getting all the certifications to make sure the building. We're leaving all this stuff up to Azure, and we can pick different regions around the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to give everyone, before we get too much into it, I want you to all have that AZ900 learning path.
Hey, Jay, I've got the link right here. I just need your
Oh,
profile so I can finish building the link.
oh, okay, sure.
Just shoot
I'll
that
give
to
it to
me
you right.
over in our chat. There we go.
There you
Okay,
go.
I got you.
Yep, no problem. I figure I just make it easy for you. You can just see it. I don't want to get too off track. So we're going to build a virtual machine. I promise you, we're going to get through it. And so what we can do here is pick the kind of uh, infrastructure redundancy, so we can use an availability zone, and we can spread this out into a number of servers if we wanted to, and spread it across. This is a demo. We're not doing that today. We're not going to use a spot instance. That's a way for you to make cheaper decisions if you need to build virtual machines. And then what you do is basically pay a discount rate on unworked or unused workloads around Azure. So if we have some stuff that's not being used and there's an availability, you get a cheaper price you can using a spot instance. Now here's where we pick the kind of hardware we want to use. The cool thing about working with Azure is I can pick one of these nice, cool, beefy boxes just for today, and then I'll delete it. It's a cool thing I get to work for Microsoft to do that. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to set up my SSH. I'm going to do as a demo today, I'm just going to type something in. I don't like using passwords. I prefer to use SSH keys, but we're just doing a demo, right?
Yep.
So the next thing I need to do is type in a password. Excuse me. I do this every time.
I get tired of making passwords.
Oh, this is a nice one. It's nice and complex. All right, now here's the thing. Now we need to be able to get into the server somehow. Now the one thing I don't want to do is I don't want to SSH into it. That's not what we're doing today. No way, no how. There's a reason why. You'll see. Next, we're going to get into disks, and we can add additional disks if we want to. So if we want to have one disk for operating system and another disk for application or data, we can split things up. This is a demo. We don't need to do that. Networking. So here's where we create a virtual network. And then the way it used to work when you needed to build application servers, any kind of servers. You needed to build networks in data centers. You needed to build routers, switches. You needed to have gear to make sure that if you had DDoSes coming in, you don't need that with Azure. We give you virtualized networks that essentially let you do all the things you could do with a physical network. You can also create hybrid networks so that you can actually create a VPN between your local and your remote location. Or I should say your cloud location and your local if you have a business that needs that. So these are all these huge things you can do with Azure. If we want a load balancer, which is a way to distribute a number of servers, we could turn that on with a switch. Now, all I'm doing, like I said, is I'm only allowing HTTP in. We need to do some stuff with this virtual network. We'll get there. Management. This is a way to be able to do a lot of extra things like collect data on your boot diagnostics or your OS or your diagnostic storage account. You'll be able to do things like add identity service, so you can add Azure Key Vault to store credentials, so you can use secrets in a more secure way. You can use AAD, Azure Active Directory, to actually allow people to SSH in or whatever you need to connect to things.
Hmm.
And then we can even do stuff like we can enable backups. This is demo, we don't need backups. And we can also enable auto shutdown. So if you create a development environment and you need to make sure it's down every single day, you could do that. And so here's another thing that we can do. We can add custom data. And so what I can do is, this is kind of an area where I could drop a bash script. And that's what I'm going to do. I got this virtual machine install bash script right here. And what I can do with this is essentially let everything in this repository get installed and all the things necessary to do that. So what it would look like if I was doing here on my local computer, let's just go to, I got a lot of stuff. Nectar, new stuff, CD new stuff.
And our question from Scraybill wrote back, or a person from Scraybill, named Scraybill, said thank you for the answers there. So yeah, I'm with Jay on there. Like Learn is especially if you've never been on the Learn page in general, it's really cool. And I would say like just here in the last several months, they've added a whole bunch more modules. They're all awesome. That I'm trying to find time to carve out and go take them all, just because you know they're fun. I like the whole
Haven't
gaming aspect of it. There's a few people on our team, on Jay and I's team, who've actually done all of the Learn modules, which I think is bananas, but amazing. And
I am having like the worst time typing today, and I really apologize to that, everybody. Read-only file system. That's weird. Something's weird with my computer. I got to figure that out at another time.
hmm,
So I'm not gonna. I was gonna clone something, but my computer's just being weird. So what I'm gonna do
gotcha.
is just grab this VM install script, and what I can do is I can use something called Cloud Init, and I'm gonna pass this install script that's going to install everything I need.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to add a repository for Universe, which is going to allow additional things to be installed. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to install Node.js, NPM, Build Essential for all of our GCC and required things to compile. We're going to download this repository in NPM, install it. Then we're going to add a config file for Supervisor to start the application. We'll start the app with supervisor. We'll make a change to Linux. And then eventually we get to a point where we install Nginx. We enable Nginx. We start it, and I actually change the default config file to create a proxy pass.
Hmm.
So I know it's a lot of stuff, but it's
Good.
really cool that you can do all this
Totally.
all at once. Yeah,
I
yeah.
know that's
Oh,
my favorite. So, what would be your best guess on how long that whole process will take?
maybe less than 10 minutes. The thing
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of cool about it is that when you get a little bit more advanced and you go past these just like bash script ways of doing these kind of application deployments, you can start using infrastructure as code methodologies.
Right.
So you can use things like Ansible, you can use things like Chef, Puppet, you name it. It's all kind of one of those things that you can take advantage of, and I think it's way easier long term to scale. This doesn't scale. This is just
Right.
for today's demo. So throughout this process, we're going to go ahead and we're going to create this virtual machine in here. But while this is going on, uh, I want to get back to this virtual network. So one of the things that you need to be able to do uh, is to log into a VM using a service called Bastion. Um, Bastion is kind of like an in-between server. It sits between you and Azure, and you essentially let it act as kind of a go-between. So
Mm-hmm.
you can SSH into machines or you can RDP into machines through this. all through the browser. You don't need to open up your network to SSH into anything. You can
Yeah.
do all this, but it requires a few things that we're going to have to do. And so what I'm going to do is show everybody that.
Great.
So let's go over, and the VM is being created. So what we're going to do is go over to the resource group. Just want to wait for the VM to be done. It takes about a few minutes.
One of our viewers asked the question, "What about Terraform?" I think is more or less what they're saying.
Oh yeah,
One of the 3 ways includes Terraform.
Oh, there's so many ways. Not just when I say 3 ways, I say 3 ways to actually go onto Azure. So today we're going to kind of look at a virtual machine. We're going to look at app service, and then we're going to look at the bigger idea of Kubernetes. So we'll start here with this VM. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to connect. And you'll see there are these 3 options. So the one thing that I didn't do is I didn't open up SSH to be able to do this to the public IP. And that's because we have something called Azure Security Service. And that actually limits our particular group from setting open to world SSH or RDP.
Yeah.
And so it actually forced me to start using this. So that's what we're going to do. So I go here and I click Manage Subnet Configurations, because what it's going to do is it needs me to create a separate subnet that's going to be on all of my virtual machines. And that subnet is going to let me connect without having to make any firewall changes. So I'll go here to Manage Subnet, and then I can go right here into the default subnet we have here, and we see we already got 172.1.0/24. That's a subnet of our bigger total block of the network that we have. We have an entire, I think, /16 that's been associated to this entire network. And so what we need to do is just kind of bust it up into smaller networks. So I'll just go to subnet here. I'm going to call it Azure Bastion subnet, because Azure recognizes this as the default subnet for our Bastion service. It's just the way it works. So now we need to create a subnet within here. So I'm going to do 172.16.2.0, and it's got to be at least a /27. If you want to know more about, let's see, what did I do here? I think I have to do a 24. 3 maybe? Might have to check some docs, Jason.
Is it 172.1.6?
Normally, I just go one more and a /27. Let's take a look. All right, let's take a look. I actually have set this up.
Well, we can certainly pull up the docs. Let's start looking.
Let's see. So let's try this. 17.1.0/27 maybe. All right, I know what we're gonna do here. Okay. So what I can do is go to address space, and I believe I can just add a new address space here.
Yeah, that's one of our viewers who's, I think, making that very suggestion. Provide an address space.
I think I'm using a bunch of these subnets. So let's see. Yep. Gotta use /8. Sorry, everybody. I'm a busybody. I have a lot of networks on my account.
Yeah, and thank you for the suggestion. You got it right on the head.
Let's see if I'm using this one. What did I do wrong here? Oh, I see. Oh, okay. Sorry. I don't do a lot of CIDR subnetting anymore.
I know. When you started going in here, I was like, I remember why I haven't come in here and played around with this yet, because it like triggers some PTSD from.
Cool. So now I can just go here and create a subnet, And from that subnet, I'll create here, and we'll call it Azure Bastion subnet. Okay. Whew. All right. We got the subnet added. We did it, folks. So now
Woo!
what we're going to do is go back to our virtual machine and we're going to configure Bastion. And that's going to take a little bit. So uh, I'm just showing you all each step by step. And I want you to get that this is stuff that you can do. It's just kind of point and click. It's
Mhm.
not that hard. The networking stuff, it was a little difficult for me. I'm not going to lie.
Well, and
But that's
also
okay.
you pointed out you and I are kind of forbidden from using SSH, but you can still use it, for others, like if they're not quite ready to dive into the Bastion stuff.
Exactly. So right now what's going on is it's creating a new Bastion host, and that Bastion host is eventually just going to be a server. I'm going to be able to give my username and password, just log in. But there's something cool that we're going to do next. Um, so let's reopen this here. One of the really awesome things about using virtual machines is they're just computers. And the cool thing is those computers come with a lot of the things that you're used to. And so one of the things I'm used to as an old sysadmin, if is the way to put it, is having serial console access. And what I can actually do with serial console access, and this is built right into Azure. If we go all the way to the bottom and we go under support troubleshooting, I can see what's actually going on from this terminal right in here. And
Mhm.
because I set up with a password, I can actually put in my username and let's see, did I type it? I did type it right. So now you can see I've logged in here. So this is before Bastion, but this is like I said, if I wanted to with Bastion, I didn't also just need to use
Sure.
my username and password. With Bastion, you can actually pass an SSH key also. So it makes it a lot easier for people who don't want to worry about remembering passwords. You can still use SSH key and use Bastion. So let's see about our application. Curl localhost. Looks like my application is up with that script, Jason.
Sweet.
Isn't that cool? So I'm going to show
Yeah.
you in the script what we did, and then I'm going to show you eventually how that kind of translates to an application being deployed. So all that really happened when the server started in that area that was called extra configuration, I can actually show you somewhere in here we can add it again, I believe under extensions, and that's another cool thing to talk about.
Yeah.
Um, but I passed that script into there, and that script allowed me to eventually just say, all right, as soon as Linux is up and it's ready to go, I want you to install these things. And so now you'll look, if I do npm, npm's installed. Um, And if we go along a little bit further, you see eventually I create a directory. And so let's see, where's that directory? Does that exist? It sure does. So it did all the things I expected to here
Mm-hmm.
in Linux.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually it started the service. And so now let's see what happened. All right. So let's go back to the overview. And when we built this, we built it with a public IP address. And so I can copy the clipboard, go in a browser. There's my clock. So
Nice.
that's one. We
Mm-hmm.
did one, all right?
That's
That's
fun.
our first application to deploy.
Jay,
Cool.
do you have like a favorite Bash script? Like just this like one script that was like, oh man, this is just a beauty.
Um, I used to work with a guy years ago, really, really brilliant guy. He passed away a few years ago due to cancer, just too young. Um, and we got a big client, a really, really big client, and we did not have time to learn um, Puppet or Chef. Just didn't have the time because this was one of the one of the biggest well-known magazines in the world. They needed us to move a lot of infrastructure, and they needed it tomorrow. Um, so what kind of happened here is he basically said, well, I know Bash. I know Bash well enough where we can create a Bash script and then have another file for a ton of variables. And so he wrote what was probably the longest Bash script I've ever seen, and a complementary set of config files for every single different portion of the infrastructure that we built.
Hmm.
It is by far one of the most terrifying things I've ever worked with. It did not scale. It was frightening because when I added new servers, I had to build them with the script manually each time. So I'd have to like create a VM, then run the script. Then it's just a nightmare. So yes, I guess that's my favorite one. If there's such a thing as a favorite bash script, which is a terrifying thing, but you know. But anyway, let's go back to the VM, and I want to show you one more thing.
Okay.
Remember, we said that we built that Bastion host. So why don't we take a look at the Bastion host that it's up now, and now I can actually go to that connect section, select Bastion, and now I can just type in the password that I created. Like I said, you could still use an SSH key right here, no problem. So now I just click connect, and you'll see this is, don't pay attention, that's a weird message that comes up. But hey, here we go. So same thing that I got here.
Sweet.
It is the same thing you're seeing here. So if I actually go to see to touch, yo, what up? And we go over here to Bastion. There it is. So yeah, there you go. It's a great way to
Same.
do the easy and not do the hard.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the first thing. I showed you the easiest way to build something with Linux and Azure. So if anybody wants to build what we just did, right here, we'll look, actually, I'll show it to you in the Git repository. If you go to React Clock Basic in the link that I've given you, and you go to the other directory, you're going to find this VM install.sh. You'll find the script you need. All you have to do is run it on the server. You can use that custom config area, or what you could have done is just do this. Go here, we'll go to raw, copy it. I could just do sudo, actually I got to do vi stuff. We'll put it in the script. That's right.
You could also do a curl. We could curl it down from the.
Oh yeah, that's a
from
lot
the.
easier. How am I doing this? Jason, sometimes I am
Hey
my
man,
own
that's why I'm
worst.
here. Sometimes I get a little wood on the ball.
You're a good man, Mr. Han. All right, so W get this. Oh, it's
Oh
because
yeah, W
Bastion.
get to.
So, hold on, let's see this. There it is. I had to use the mouse. All right, so there's the script, and what I could have done is just run it on right here. I got to do it with sudo bash VM install, and then this will do the stuff. But this is
Right.
literally what happens.
Right.
It's going to fail a bunch of times because I've already run it,
Yeah.
but it's still going to
But it was
run.
fast. You said 10 minutes. I don't think it was 10 minutes.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't.
Maybe it was
And
less.
yeah, see if you curl localhost. Oh, that's because the app needs to be restarted with super. But that's, hey,
Yeah.
we're
Okay.
almost done.
Right on.
So that's numero uno. I'm disconnected. And when you're done with stuff, so I've shown you how to do everything pretty much with the portal, but I want to
Mm-hmm.
show you how to use what's the Cloud Shell. So that's right in here.
Mm.
If you click Cloud Shell, or if you go to shell dot, not Royal Shell, yes, Azure Cloud Shell, or if you go to shell.azure.com, one or the other, you can get what is a active shell that's built right into Azure. I've got a lot of different accounts. Like I said, I'm a busybody with Azure, got a lot going on. And I have the ability to actually work with what's called Azure Resource Manager. Azure Resource Manager is kind of like the engine of what makes everything work on Azure. You send information to it, and it says, what do you want? And so here's an example. So what we want to do is we want to delete the stuff that we built today. You know what I mean? I like to
Yep.
clean up after myself.
Definitely.
And so what we're going to do is AZ is the command. So AZ is the Azure command lines tool. It's built into this version of Azure
Mm-hmm.
Cloud Shell, and you can also download it, install it locally. I think it works for just about everything,
Right.
Linux, Mac, Windows, you name it. And then there's also PowerShell. So if you want to use native PowerShell plugins for Azure, they exist too. You authenticate your account. You could write all your stuff in Azure. I should say in PowerShell to manipulate stuff that you want in Azure.
Mm-hmm.
So the next thing that we're going to do here, excuse me 1 second. All right, fair enough. Sorry, there's a lot of stuff going on. There we go. No problem. Okay, let's get back to what we were talking about. So what we like to do is be able to see what we're working with. And so the Azure Resource Manager allows you to use a like unified control plane to manage everything across Azure. And we can use AZCLI to actually manipulate, view, delete, create across that whole control plane. So here I'm going to show AZ, and AZ has all these subcommands, and I'm going to use AZ group, and I want to list all the different groups that I have, and I want an output of table because everything comes out as just straight YAML,
Yeah.
uh, not YAML, excuse me, JSON, and it doesn't look pretty. But this is a pretty way to do it. You can use output table, and it actually tells you what's the status. And so our group that we worked with today was called egg carton. So we're going to leave the eggs in the egg carton, and we're going to throw the whole thing away. And we can do that by using AZ group delete. We give the name of the group, so we'll just say -n, and we'll call it egg carton. Ooh, let's type right. And then what it's going to do is it's going to ask me, are you sure? You don't always have to do it. You could put a -y after egg carton, and it won't ask you this if
Mm-hmm.
you're really, really sure. But I wanted to show everybody that there's a little bit of a safety here. So we'll
Yep.
say yes. So right now, this command goes to Azure Resource Manager. That's what this whole running thing is right here. And it says, okay, we're ready to go. I'm doing it. And I'm going to go through the process of destroying what you want me to destroy. And so if we actually run this command again. So what I'm going to do is just going to copy it. And what's great is you can run the service in a couple of different windows at the same time if you need to. And excuse me, we don't want to do that. What I wanted to do is AZ group list output table. And what you can see is it actually is giving you the status of what's going on right now. So it shows me right here that it's deleting.
Yeah.
And so this is Azure Resource Manager shooting you back some information that's saying, hey, I don't want this anymore. And it says, yep, don't worry about it. It's going away. And I looked and I asked, are you sure? And it says, I am sure. So now we've finished our first step. All right, Jason.
Yeah. I'm
Uh,
gonna find some docs on Azure Resource Manager to share with everybody for you.
cool. And so here's the next part of this is that when we built everything with Azure today, we built it on a VM, and a VM is still comes with a pretty high cloud tax. And what I mean by that, when you choose to use a virtual machine, you make a decision that you want to manage everything associated with the virtual machine. Do you know what I mean, Jason?
Yes, I do. Sorry, I was muted there. Yeah, exactly.
Like everything in the virtual machine that you create has a certain level of responsibility for you when you deploy the application.
Mm-hmm.
So there is an operating system, and there are things within the operating system that you may be running as dependencies. If you use a virtual machine, these are things that you have to work on constantly. You have to make sure they're up to date. VMs come with a lot of overhead. And as you saw, this was a single point of failure. I didn't have any scaling set up. And if I wanted scaling, I would have to do the process I did across a number of servers. So I want to save us a little bit of time and a lot of work. And so there's the idea of containers.
Mm-hmm.
So Jason, what's a container?
Um, a logical grouping. Well, it depends on what you're talking about, but I know what you're referring to, like containerized applications.
Yeah.
And
So, mhm.
yeah, so for example, I believe most people are probably aware of Docker as like the name that comes to mind when you're talking about containers. But it's a containerized thing that only contains exactly what's needed for your applications to run, and therefore is very small, very usable in lots of scalable ways.
So I want to give everybody an opportunity to learn a ton about this stuff, and I got a really great one by talking to uh, Eric St. Martin. He's a part of the Azure advocacy team. He's been doing stuff with Kubernetes, Golang, containers. So I'm going to share you, Jason, this blog post. And I think that if you need to know a whole lot about containers, there's some information right here. The other great thing is that with containers, they give you an opportunity to really use more DevOps practices because they integrate so well with modern CI/CD or modern continuous integration and continuous deployment tools. And
Mm-hmm.
we've
Mm-hmm.
got some stuff that we're actually going to be showing you today. So
Yeah.
what I want to do is I want to show you another way to deploy this application into
And I put that link in the chat for everyone that Jay was just referring to. Him
the
and
web.
Eric talking about containers. And by the way, Eric, he's also on Twitch. We should find out his handle. And we might have lost Jay here for just a second. Sometimes this
It's known
happens.
as an app service.
There we go.
Uh-oh.
Now we're back. We had just a little
Hey,
blip in
we're
the
we're
network.
doing it live.
That's right. You
Uh,
go
and
live, that happens.
So now what we're going to do is we're going to build this web app. And so this is a little bit like that process that we did last time. Now we created the resource group. Now we're going to create a name for it. And I'm just going to call it Clock for Jason, because Jason, you get a lot today. Uh, and then what we can do is actually, instead of actually deploying it with a script, we're going to deploy it using a publishing model or using either code, where we can actually just provide a repository of our code, or a Docker container. So what we can do is we can build a container on my local computer or in the Cloud Shell. Local computer, I would do it using Docker. In the Cloud Shell, I could use a command called AZACR. ACR is an Azure Container Registry. And that lets me keep our containers in a place to load everything from.
Mm-hmm.
And that AZACR process will let me actually build that Docker image. And then I can go in here and actually say, I want you to serve this image.
Yeah.
But if we do this with the runtime stack, it'll actually kind of do all that stuff for us, because I've already got a Docker file. I've already built one. It's right here. And so that's the great thing if you clone this repo, is that's the other thing that you get, is you get this Docker file. And within this Docker file, um, Docker files are basically like bash scripts or batch scripts. They're a series of work that you want done. So rather than using that SSH script, you can see it's far more streamlined. Like let's compare. This is the Docker file, and this is the VM installation. This is 72 lines long, and this Docker, it's 19 lines long. And
Mm-hmm.
you can see the big difference is in this situation, we don't care about the reverse proxy because the app service is going to take care of that. It's going to serve everything automatically to actually port 443. So we don't have to worry about port 80. It's actually going to give us SSL. It's going to give us a fully qualified domain name, and you can see right here, clockforjason.azurewebsites.net. We can make that custom if we want to. And then now what we have to do is actually select where this is going to actually run on. So what we're going to do is create a service plan. We don't want to do it in the central US because I am East Coast. It is what it is.
He's an East Coaster. We've got Frank in the chat who's just also making a few cracks about you and showing off Cloud Shell. Said it wouldn't be a stream with Jay if there wasn't any Cloud Shell. But he also mentioned that Eric has been a guest on our show here recently.
Oh,
And
cool.
he's great. Yeah. So
I
everybody
love
go
me.
follow Eric on Twitch. I'm gonna find his actual Twitch handle.
I love me some Cloud Shell. I'm not gonna lie.
Who doesn't? I love
Uh,
Cloud Show too.
it's one of the coolest parts of Azure. So right now, we're going to create a app service plan, and the app service plan is literally just the kind of hardware setup we want to do. And so what we're going to do is just call it eggs 01. And now what we can actually do is pick the kind of hardware we want this application to run on. So it's a spec. And so this is where you start to get an idea of what app service gives you as a developer. Because now you don't have to be a system administrator to do this. You can be basically anyone that wants to build and needs infrastructure. This is kind of your guide. And so we've got all these different types of tiers. If you want to start for free, there is this free tier. You get to create one of these. There's also some really inexpensive one, $12.41, and you get to run um, up to 3 containers. Whereas if in production, if you get to some of the the cheap one right here in production, you get up to 20 instances. So it's all about how uh, much you need, and also you can do isolated where it'll actually put all your instances on one particular piece of hardware. This is a little bit more expensive as you can see, but we're going to just pick the cheap one right here. And you can see it gives you all this stuff that you don't have to build on your own. So
Mm-hmm.
250 gigs of storage, memory, Azure compute units, so that it's how much compute units that are associated with the amount of CPU time, what you need to actually make your application run, the underlying gears, the I/O associated with it. Then you get traffic managers, so you can routing to multiple instances of your app. So if you want to actually spread it across a number of different regions, you could
Mm-hmm.
do that.
Mm-hmm.
Staging slots, you could actually create multiple places to do your deployments to, and then kind of separate it to like blue green it. So if you want to test 10% of your app and only release it, you can do
Yeah.
that. If you
Right.
want to actually deploy just a specific Git branch, you can do that to a specific staging slot and then flip it to production. So you can do all these different types of really cool things. So we're just going to pick this particular gear, click apply, and next we'll go to monitoring. Gives us an opportunity to enable application insights. It's a real great way to see what's going on with your app. So now we'll just say yes. We'll go to tags. This is just to give it whether or not you want to tag. We're not going to really worry about it right now. So
I
we'll
put
click
the
review and create.
put the link into this stuff for the docs into our chat too for everybody.
Great. So now what we're going to do is click create. And Azure Resource Manager essentially took what's a template and applied that template to what I just asked to do to Azure. So it gave it to Azure Resource Manager and says, here's a template. Here's all the different inputs and outputs that that template contains. And so what we can do for the future is if I wanted to replicate this process and not have to do the next, last, I can actually go to this template and I can download it, and it's just a zip file. And if we go into the zip file, what we can do is see right here, add folder to workspace. What we can do is see here, where'd he go? Right in here, we have a parameter file, which is just some JSON that gives all the information that we're going to eventually provide. And then we have these, I should say that was the template that actually execute all the different things that we want. And then here are the parameters that contain the specifics that we just built. So you see how we built a hosting plan name, eggs01, value. That's all here. We can actually increment some of the names and redeploy it when we want to. So we can save that, no problem. So let's go to app services and let's go to our new clock for JSON. So we've got our new app service here.
We had a question in
And
chat, Jay, about
sure.
I believe what they mean or what they're asking is app service free. I shared the docs to app services as well as the link to get free Azure credits, which
There's a free tier.
Yeah.
There's a free tier. If you see, like I said, I picked P1 V2, but if you go and you look when you select the app hosting plan, there is a free one you can use up to 1 per account. So we've created this infrastructure, but if you actually go here you're going to see it's just in a demo. So he's just got some space. And what we're going to do is actually fill this space with our application. And so what I'm going to do is go to this area called the deployment center. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And the deployment center is going to give me some opportunities to use CI/CD tools, or what we like to call DevOps tools, to deploy our application. And so we've got a few different options. We've got Azure Repos, which uses Azure DevOps. And Azure DevOps will, you can clone your application there. You can use GitHub, which is what I'm going to be using today, or Bitbucket or a local Git. You can even use FTP, but I'm going to do it from GitHub. So let's go ahead, click continue. And so if you haven't already authenticated, what it'll do is it will send you an auth process, and it'll let you log into your GitHub account. So the next process is we have to decide how we're going to build our application. And we have these couple of options. So we can use Azure Pipelines, which is going to use Azure DevOps essentially to
Mm-hmm.
build everything. We can use GitHub Actions, which is what we're going to use. Or you can use the app service Kudu. This is just another build method, but it's not integrated into source control. This is.
Right.
So we're going to click GitHub Actions, and this is a great service. If you don't know about GitHub Actions, do some Googling, but it's essentially a way to do deployment and testing
Mm-hmm.
right from your GitHub account. So I'm going to pick my account or my organization. I'm going to pick my repository, and that's React Clock Basic. I'm going to pick the master branch, and now we have the runtime stack of what we're going to build it. We're going to build Node, and it's actually going to build 12 LTS or long-term support. We'll click continue, and then what it's going to do is give me a workflow file, and that's just YAML.
Mm-hmm.
And so because I've authenticated between GitHub and Azure, this has a right to actually create this, but it's going to do more than just create this file. So let's go, I'll show you that after this. So let's click finish. And so now Azure is going to put a GitHub workflow file into my repository. And then GitHub knows based on my repo automatically to trigger a new build now. So you're going to see right here, add or update the app service right here.
Yep.
GitHub just put this here. This wasn't here before.
Right.
And here's the file they added. And let's take a look at it. It's just the YAML. It's a manifest of what to do with this code
Mm-hmm.
once it's been built.
Yep.
So right now it's going through the process, and what we can do is, ooh, what's wrong? We have a problem.
My first
Let's see what the
introduction
problem.
to this was GitHub Actions was it May when Build, the conference Build was coming out or was out, and we were all working. But not all of us, but
Oh,
a lot of people working. Looks like it's still going. Oh yeah,
yeah, my still going.
we're working on the static web app product launch for
Yeah.
and
Oh, yeah,
uh
that's
and,
really
and
easy. I did a few videos on that too.
yeah, and so that was my first time going through any kind of experience where it created the workflow file for me, created the YAML. You still got to go in and massage it a little bit, but
Yep. So
yeah, it was pretty awesome.
that's kind of what we did here. So now, once that workflow file kicked off, it then grabbed the repository. It set up the version of Node.js I wanted. It built my application, as you can see. I didn't have a test specified because this is just a demo app. But if you want, you can specify tests and make sure they're passed. That's a big part of doing a proper CI/CD process.
Yeah.
And then what it does here is it deploys it. So what it's kind of going to do is going to create this package. And this package is just to be ready for containers. And then what it does is basically builds these containers and automatically creates these little instances. So we're going to just wait for this part to finish. But what's great about GitHub Actions is any change you make moving forward automatically will trigger another one of these builds within the repository. Any push to the master branch automatically does this. So let's let this finish, but until it does, I want to just show you one more thing that this actually does for us, Jason. So you see right here,
Mm-hmm.
security.
Yep.
Let's go to security. So now there's some stuff that we have set up, different policies, and when you work with repositories and use CI/CD processes, you need to kind of set up some trusts,
Mm-hmm.
and those trusts need to allow you to be able to uh, actually access our application and then post it to Azure. So there's some secrets that need to kind of come between the two. So if we go to this settings section right here, you're going to see right here called secrets. This is part of every single one of us. If you have a GitHub repo, this section is in there for you.
Mm-hmm.
If you click secrets, you're going to see there are all these different secrets that I have set up for different applications that I have configured. Now, no matter what you do, it will automatically update these when you build a GitHub action through the deployment center in App Service. It's an incredibly powerful, quick way of making sure that everything's secure during your deployment process, and also easy to clean up when you're done with an application. So right here, all I have to do is click remove. That old uh, secret is gone, and they don't have to worry about it. So let's go check out what's going on with our action. So it says it's done. So let's go back to it. You'll see that what essentially happened was uh, a master branch build was triggered when I committed to master. And that was essentially when Azure put that workflow file in. And so when that finished, the workflow did all this through GitHub Actions and ran through the entire process. And when it was done, it cleaned up after itself and then it completed the job. So let's go. Remember, we had this, where was it? That demo page. Let's go to overview, Jason. Here's that URL, that fully qualified domain name.
Right.
Bazoo!
Wow.
There it is. And it's actually DevOpsy. It's DevOps, man. And that's like the cool thing here is like I said, literally, it's using a full CI/CD process. And let's show you what happens when we trigger an update. So I'll go here to code, and I don't really want to change anything in the app, but any change I make here
Mm-hmm.
in this will automatically be reflected. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go into one of these like extra files I have. So let's go into Kate's,
And
and I'm just going
will
to.
it work if you can set it up to work, correct me if I'm wrong, on different branches too, right? Like, yeah, so you can do more like branch specific deployments using this too.
So yep. So now I'm just building this, and you shouldn't normally commit directly to mem, but this is a demo. So now I'm going to just commit this new file right to master. Now watch what's going to happen. We see I did create touch.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that. See that little yellow? Let's
Yep.
click it. Ooh, ooh, ooh. What's going on here? Details. There's now a GitHub action set up for this.
Yeah.
So now,
I put the docs for deploying with GitHub Actions in our chat too for everybody to check out. It's really fun, if nothing else.
yeah, yeah. So let me go to my dev2 J or GitHub actions. So I've got a couple of you for you here. So I really recommend checking out a couple of these. So let me share this one with Jason. Whoop, too fast for my own good. So this one's a really great one. And then here's the next one we'll kind of probably talk with a bit through, and it's Azure Kubernetes Service and GitHub Actions. And this, oh God, that's an awful still of me. Whew. So Azure Kubernetes Service is another way of building containers and serving those containers to an application. So Kubernetes, it's a big deal. It's allows you to quickly deploy a production-ready Kubernetes cluster in Azure. What is Kubernetes? Kubernetes is a big control plane to distribute containers. And what Azure did was said, all right, Normally, to build these, you need to build a bunch of servers, and you need to manage those servers. Then you need to create the way to create those containers on those servers. And Azure said, well, why don't we just do it for you? Isn't that nice of them?
Yes.
So so what happens is, and I've got some ready Kubernetes stuff to go here, Kubernetes services. So I've got this AKS cluster right here. And what's really great about Kubernetes um, on Azure is it scales so well. It has so many things available to users. And much like a lot of the other stuff that we have, we can use the deployment center, just like App Service.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what I can do is almost the same thing with a Kubernetes cluster. So I can go here to GitHub. I can go to Next. I'll authorize. And now we're going to just do the same exact thing. We're going to go to our React Clock Basic.
I
Next.
just looked at the clock, Jay, just to give you a time update. We got lots of time left, but just to be more specific, we're at about 30 minutes out.
All right, yeah. And see, right now, what we can do is we can use a container registry. So this is a place to keep containers, images. And I've got some already built. I'll show you a little bit more. And now what we can do is go here, done. And so now it's going to kind of configure manifest files for me and a GitHub action file for me. So it's going to look at my application, and it's going to say, this is how we build this application with Kubernetes. And so that's what's exactly happening right now. Deploy to AKS. So let's take a look. It may not work because the last time I looked, there's some stuff out the box that needs to kind of be fixed in the manifest. But why don't we take a look? All right.
Yeah.
The workflow that was built, and what happens here is a little different than last time. So this time we built a Kubernetes server, and then we have an AKS cluster, and we have a trust between uh, where we keep our images and where we keep our clusters. And we have it what's called a service principal that's in Azure Active Directory. And the service principal basically says you're allowed to build and push images from this container registry, which is kind of like a locker. It's just where you keep everything, but it's got revisions, source control, stuff like that built into it. Right here, you can see now we basically say, well, we want to build from that locker. And then what we do is we create a secret and we connect from that locker. And then we have some manifests, and those manifests will eventually allow us to build our application with Kubernetes. So let's take a look what's going on here. I think it's going to break, but we'll see. I think it's going to break when it gets to
I've just accepted that when it comes to the YAML files, it gets created by default. Because, well, I've never come across a YAML file I didn't still have to make some small, even if one line change to before.
Let's look at deployment. So I think deployment and deployment one are probably comparable to like previous things I've done. So let's look at the deployment and let's look at the difference. Okay. So this is a custom deployment that I did. And I want to use this. So I can just make a couple changes. I'm just going to use this other manifest that I built, and I can do that. I can just go into the workflow file, deploy to AKS cluster, and it's going to ask for those workflow files. You see, it's like deployment one. I'm just going to change that. So let's just click the little pencil. I'm sorry, everybody, that I'm doing it here.
Hey, also, Jace, I want to say some really exciting news. We've just been rated, our show, from the Visual Studio channel. So we've got a bunch of viewers who've just joined us. So say hello to everybody again, Jay.
What's going on, everybody? My name's Jay. You can find me on Twitter at JDestro, and check out Twitch, Azure Fun Bites. Yes, please check out Azure Fun Bites. It is my little passion project. Every week you can watch me here live on Twitch. Please come join, raid, do whatever you want. We got another one on Thursday. Chris Norg is going to actually join me for Visual Studio Code integrations into Azure. That's all we're going to talk about for an hour. Join me right here, Azure Fun Bites. Follow me on Twitter. I wish I could give you more of a. But anyway, what we're going to do right now is I am sorry, everybody from Visual Studio. I'm making my changes directly here. I apologize. But I'm going to make those changes. So all I did was I changed from those -1s to use these uh, deployment files that I know work. And so I'm just going to start that commit right to the same file, commit changes. And so that's going to trigger another build. So let's go to actions. And so that's the other thing is we can have concurrent builds. So I am just going to look at that. But want to see what's actually part of that concurrent build, Jason?
Mm-hmm.
So I have two different YAML files,
Yeah,
two
I've seen this
GitHub
before.
man. So what happens is if we go to actions, it's actually going to build both of my YAML files to my different versions of the application in different infrastructures.
Yeah.
I want that.
Yeah.
That rules. There's nothing bad about this. This is the best thing we could probably do for us. So I love that this is like an easy way to kind of deploy and make use of all these like multiple deploy points.
Yeah.
So like we've got the first one was the virtual machine. That was number one.
Right.
Number two was the app
App
service.
services.
So we've been able to same application, same exact infrastructure across Azure globally, but different services in different ways based on different deployment methods and methodologies. Just why do I have to say methods? It's just methods. Just follow me.
Practices and methods.
Yes, I got a bunch of
Right.
marbles in my mouth today.
Me too.
Anyhow, so let's go to this one for deploy to AKS cluster. And let's take a look at the build and deploy. And I think it's going to be really cool. So as you can see right here, Jason, this time it ran all those manifest files, and let's look at what they do because I think that's pretty cool. So the reason why this is a little bit more complicated than that app service is this is for allowing you to do like massive distribution of your application that can go globally. It can do tons and tons of just wild stuff across the internet and use this singular control plane and use a service called, or I should say, a CLI called kubectl or kubectl or however you want to put it, to manipulate everything. But what we're going to do here is look at the three different things that we're doing. And the first thing is the deployment. And the deployment, this is going to break because I put the wrong ACR in here. You know, unless, actually, did I already have this ACR? It might actually still be alive. Let's take a look. Sorry, I have to look at something right now. So ACRs or Azure Container Registries are, like I said, that locker.
Which is just like a local version of your own Docker registry, correct?
Mm-hmm.
That's just yours, your own stuff.
Here. So I don't think that ACR exists, but we'll see what happens. I think I put in the wrong ACR in the YAML file, and that's really easy to fix. All I have to do is just here. So let's go back to the code. Let's go into manifests. We'll go to deployment. So what I need to do is put the right ACR in here. So I'm just going to change the app here. Just doing a little update. And yes, I'm sorry, everybody. I'm copying and pasting it by hand. Whatever. I'm so sorry. I did not mean to do this awful thing to you all. I promise you. Okay, so actually, this needs to be. Let's go here. And so let's take a look at the image that was created here. And so this is the ACR, and we can look at the repositories. And in the repositories, we can see we've got these different applications. And so what I can do is take one of the versions and build it into a container. So let's go back to repositories. We're going to just build JAKS1. So I'll just update that. And I'm going to give v1, which is the version 1 of the image. Because if you look, Each one is tagged.
Mm-hmm.
This should be our V1. And so what we could update these things right here. So we need to go ahead, update the app as well with the change. And so now it's going to start building. If we go to manifests, well, so that's the deployment. That's how the application will be built. And then if we go to ingress, this is actually how the application is going to come online. And so this is the default one, and I got to make a change to make it match. So let's go back here. Take a look at the manifest. So I'm doing this the super complicated way, but there's another way to do this to actually apply our manifests. I'm just going to do it, Jason. You know
Go for
why?
it. Uh,
Because we don't have a
YOLO.
lot of time left.
Well, how much
So,
time do we have? We have like about 19 minutes.
yep. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use kubectl with Azure. So if I do az aks get credentials, and I think I have to give the name. Oh, let's see. G is let's take a look at Fun Bytes. So the group is Fun Bytes, and the name of the cluster is JAKS. And so what this should do is go to Azure and say, I need the Kubernetes credentials to be able to use kubectl. So now if I do kubectl or kubectl show pods, it's get, sorry. It should show me the
I'm a
pods.
kubectl person myself.
So right now you can see like what happens when you actually run the Kubernetes manifest file. So let's
Mm-hmm.
take a look at it. So if we go into React Clock Basic and we go to Kate's, I've got some of these set up right here.
Cool.
So if we look at deployment, it's that deployment file we had with our image and all the stuff that we need to
Mm-hmm.
actually deploy it.
Mm-hmm.
So what I can do here is just type kubectl apply -f, which is the file, and then we're going to just say deployment. And so it's already been deployed, but what it's actually going to do is go ahead and make any changes. It's idempotent. So anything I do, if nothing changes, then it's not going to make any changes. So what I'm
Mm-hmm.
just going to do, let's just go here to that deployment file. Let's just make a small change to it. So let's change the amount of memory the containers can have. Let's double it. We got all that gear. So we're going
Mm-hmm.
to 256, and we're going to do this to 512. Did I make a mistake here? Yeah. Sorry, everybody. Like I said, Grandpa Linux here. So, like I said, let's go back to memory. Oh, no, it was there. It was right.
Capital M,
I didn't
lowercase
see
I.
that. Yeah, that's weird. Huh. That's like, whatever, dude. All right, I was just paranoid. Okay, so let's make
Yeah,
those
that looks
changes
right.
now. Let's apply it. So let's apply it now. And so now, what? No matches. Oh, I'm using an old version. Yeah. All right. Let's make a change. I think I just have a really old version. Yep, I do. Let's try that again. So cat. All right. I gotta make a change up there. No problem. Sorry, everybody. This is when you do it live. But we got most of the demo right, didn't we?
I think it's going
Uh,
great. I mean, this is all normal stuff, so it's not like it's a this these are the problems and the landmines you come across. Where I always screw up with YAML is on formatting. It's
I made some
very
change.
particular
I think
about where your spaces are and how things are tabbed out.
I did something funny. Git pull or git checkout. Let's do git checkout. So if you make a change to a file and you ever want to just get it back, and it's in your repo, just git checkout. And let's cat deployment. Okay. I see what's up. All right. We've done a little bit more than I can right now with this, but I want to show everybody at least some pod management to take a look.
Mm-hmm.
So we've applied our deployment. We've applied our ingress, and our ingress is actually going to allow the port from port 443 to be served to eventually allow us to connect to our application. And the thing that we want to do next is actually see where an IP is created. So there's this other one. Let me show you the other load balancer manifest. And what this does is this makes a call to the Kubernetes cluster. And the Kubernetes cluster knows that it belongs to Azure. And it tells it, go to your cloud provider and get a public IP address. And so what it does is it creates a load balancer service and does that. So that's as simple also as running that manifest of apply. Same thing. So minus F load balancer. And then what you do is you can go ahead and you can do kubectl. The great thing about kubectl is it's just very, very simple to run commands. So kubectl get service. And there it shows us the different services that are running. So this service is the Kubernetes API IP address. So when you're making calls to Kubernetes, it's doing it all on the local IP. It's using a local network that's created by the cluster. And then it creates this other service here. And this is actually the public IP that it actually got from Azure. And if we go here, that's number 3. We use Kubernetes this time. And now what happens is if you take a look at this Kubernetes service, what it really is, like, sure, we have this control plane right here, Jason,
Mm-hmm.
that shows us that we're making changes to Kubernetes. But if you really look what it's made up of, go to this, you go to node pools. You'll see this right here, node pool, okay? You
Yep.
see that node count? You click that, and you find out that it's actually 3 virtual machines. That's it. This is 3 virtual machines. But the thing that makes these 3 virtual machines Kubernetes is this Kubernetes service. So it's just a service that sits on top of those 3 VMs. You don't ever have to log into those VMs. You should never even have to think about them
Yep.
unless you want to do this, unless you want to increase the size, reduce the size, or even enable auto scaling. So whenever you need more nodes, you can. That's all based on how many CPUs your account is permitted to have and things like that. But I think you get the point, is that you get all these additional ways of building throughout Azure. And so I think I kind of came to the end of the demo-ish stuff, Jason.
All right. Cool.
I can I can shill if you want me to.
Well, no, let's just go back and chat as we've got just a few minutes to wrap up here.
Sure, sure.
And I love that last part of the demo there. Hang on, let me adjust my camera here. It's angry with me. Um, the part about, I think Kubernetes, abstracts so much of what in the world's happening. Well, you start at containers, and that just like abstracts like, what in the world's going on? How do these things work? Is this the black magic? And then you talk about containers, which is like Kubernetes, that starts orchestrating all these containers and what's going on and how many you need, and that's another layer of abstraction. It starts to worry a lot of people, I think, when you get that far away from the actual app and the actual hardware of what's going on. But I love how you can go into AKS and you can actually see that how many VMs are running and what the real what the real resources behind it are. And I don't know. To me, that makes it easier to wrap my head around what's truly going on and make sense of the complex stuff. Where distributed systems are already complex enough, but if we can somehow make things a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Where you can have this better mental image of what's going on within the system, and like where things could potentially have a problem, where to look if you're wanting to make some improvements. So this has been great.
I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, and thank you
Anybody
to
have any more
everybody
questions?
who's been. I was just about to say thank you to everybody who's been on the stream and being part of the chat. We've had some good questions. Yeah, if you got anything else right now for Jay before we got to say goodbye, we've got just a few more minutes left. What other things are you working on, Jay? Other than the
What am
Azure
I
Fun
working on?
Bites, what future projects? What's in the works?
So I got a couple of things that I have working on in the hopper. One of the things I'm really looking forward to is DevOps Days Buffalo. That's going to be an online. I know we've got some work coming up for Microsoft Ignite kind of content looking forward for the
Mm-hmm.
future. Because remember, we're still got stuff to do even though we're home. And I know you do. And so we've got different content coming up. I think we have an opportunity to learn a lot. And so in this time, I've actually spent a lot of time learning more about Azure and prepping for like my AZ 104, which is kind of what I think is the next real step
Yeah,
after you finish the
I was thinking
AZ
that's the one for
900.
administrators, right? I was thinking the exact same
Yep.
thing. I got the AZ 900 certification back in January, or maybe it was December.
Hmm.
Anyway, and then I've already been thinking, what's the next one I want to get? And there's one on DevOps, and then there's the
Yep.
104, which I want to say the one on DevOps, maybe you have to have 104 before you can get that one. It might be a
I
prerequisite.
I believe I believe it's a prereq only because DevOps is a very deep kind of subject the way Azure covers it, and I think that if you talk to someone like Abel, you get the idea of how much work they really put into the thoughts behind all the different things in the DevOps. So it's not just scripting and configuration management, and deployment, CI/CD. It's also about the big picture of DevOps, thinking about agile boards, thinking about life
Yeah,
cycles.
it's the whole
The
thing.
big ideas.
Yep.
Hmm.
And in which I think, I mean, it's great for people who are running just projects. Like we use it on our team with Azure boards, and to know what's in flight, and everybody can stay in touch with who's doing what kind of status they're at. And but then there's the whole management of infrastructure, and there's the pipelines, and there's the artifacts, and there's just a whole bunch of stuff that you can do in there. And as a modern sysadmin, as like a person who has to kind of do a lot of different things, including understanding how to deploy using infrastructure as code ideas, there's a lot of awesome stuff in there.
Yeah, I think right now, especially like I said with Microsoft Learn, you have a really great opportunity with all these different like free services to really get the most out of your experience. You can really learn a lot. And not only that, kind of take that path to what's maybe next for your career.
Yeah.
And to be able to do that for free, I think is really important because in a time now where people are really running towards resources,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's important to kind of be one of them if you can be, and I think that that's what we're up to right now, and helping people use the tools and the education to get the most out of what they need to do next.
Absolutely. And there's Learn, which is amazing, and everybody should go check it out. But there's also some stuff, just in terms of Microsoft in general. I think, Microsoft and all of their associated properties, LinkedIn. I know there's like some new LinkedIn learning courses that have been opened up for free. But just taking the opportunity to use this time to improve, I've been thankful to have a little bit of time to do a lot of the Learn modules, but I haven't gone out and done anything else beyond that. Um,
Hmm.
but what I was going to say is uh, the Learn modules specifically are something that Jay and I, the team that we're on, we have a little bit of insight to in terms of um, creating new content or coming up with content suggestions. So if anybody on the show, becomes familiar with Microsoft Learn and has been through there and says, "Oh, what would make for an awesome Learn module in here?" Feel free to shoot that over to either one of us, and we can try to raise
Absolutely.
that and see if we can get that in there, because we're always looking for great ideas for some awesome courses in there. Yeah, so that's about all I've got, I guess. So once again, I'd say thanks to Jay for joining us. This has been awesome. Hopefully we'll do it again in the future. Make sure you follow Jay on his Twitch channel as well as on Twitter, and check out his show, Azure Fun Bites. I made a small cameo on there recently. It was fun to work with you on that.
Thank you very much, sir.
Visual Studio Code, obviously, it's a daily driver for a lot of different things. And thank you to everybody who has joined us from the Visual Studio stream. It was really nice to have you join us there for a little bit, and hopefully we'll see you again real soon. This has been another episode of All Around Azure, and thank you to my guest, Jay Gordon. Follow him, Jay Destro, on Twitter. My name's Jason Hand. You can follow me at Jason Hand on Twitter, and we will see you all hopefully again real soon. Take care.
Go Yankees.